Thanks for inviting us. So I'm Vanessa from BTX Capital. So today's topic is about blockchain applications opportunities in next 5 years. So I have been in this space for over 5 years. So I've been review or been through a lot of group projects, bad projects in this industry. So I have 3 questions for today's panel to discuss about what's the future in the next few years. So first the question is about in the next 5 years, what other industries do you believe can leverage blockchain technology for innovation and transformation? Yes.
All right, yeah, so I guess before getting into the question, a quick introduction of myself and who I work for, and then we'll jump into the question. But my name is Talyor Harris. I am head of community at dappOS. dappOS is a Web3 operating protocol, which basically makes dApps as user-friendly as Web2 or mobile apps. So I think if you were to ask me, if someone were to come up to me 10 years ago and say, 10 years from now, we would be hosting these conferences based on the idea of blockchain, I probably would not have any idea what they were saying or what they were going on about, but now here we are. And so I think just in this amount of time, each innovation, each thing around blockchain is continuing to change. So 5 years from now, I think it'll be a part of everyday life, whether you are well-versed in Web3, whether you know about blockchain, I think it'll be something that we use on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, I'm Pat, COO at VALTs, which produces a Web 2.5 engine that provides a digital ownership layer and a compliance layer for brands who are looking to enter the space that do not have a blockchain department already. And I think I kind of agree with you. I think in 5 years, we're going to see a lot of shifts in the space. Right now, we're definitely much more technical focused. We haven't found as many interesting ways to see consumer use cases. But I think kind of looking at this event in general, we've seen a lot of people who are interested in topics like regenerative finance, decentralized science, where we can actually start owning our own data and actually pooling that to make a profit. We have the ability to kind of look at spaces like energy and kind of looking at decentralized science also, where we're looking at use cases for AI to actually increase the advancement of medical research. We're also looking at places like automobile and like gaming. There's so many consumer use cases that actually have the importance of a digital ownership layer where you're actually able to keep that data. And I think each year as we go forward, we're actually going to see more and more things pop up.
Yeah, I think originally a lot of people, got into blockchain obviously for the whole finance, the decentralized finance aspect of it. But aside from money, one of the other things that is the most important is health, right? If we don't have health, we don't have money. So I think one of the main things I want to touch on first would be implementing blockchain into the medical industry and medicine. For example, if I'm on my way to the hospital, let's say it's an emergency or it's your annual doctor checkup, regardless of what's happening, I'm gonna have to fill out the information. I'm gonna have to give my insurance. I'm gonna have to fill out the medical records. And a lot of times I could be in an emergency and I still have to do this regardless. And so, more often than not, you'll find yourself in these waiting rooms filling out this information where all of this can be done at the click of a button on blockchain. All of your medical records could be in one place to where when you're on your way to the hospital, the doctors, the nurses, the people at the front desk are able to access those records at a click of a button, which could, in the long run, save you time, could even save lives based on timing. So I think obviously blockchain in the medical industry would be a big thing first.
I actually want to take that in a little bit different of a direction because for me, I really like public goods, right? And I think historically we've seen with charitable donations, there's a lot of room for bias. When working with large NGOs, there's huge donor bias. So anybody who's putting in $5 million, $10 million has a lot of say in how that organization's run. We have companies in the space like Bitcoin who use projects like concepts like quadratic voting, quadratic funding. We're actually trying to use on-chain data to actually provide better analysis of how corporates should be matching their programs. And so a lot of this is actually a transparency layer, and we can actually make better charitable contributions, put money into better places, all utilizing that same blockchain technology.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's lots of different things we can touch on. But
yeah, I agree. So for me, I always think to leverage blockchain technology is quite, predict because we discussed this like 5 years ago. I think it's a very big company. They put this on topic. It's IBM. So they discuss about the ledger technology to how to improve the Web 2 to Web 3. So we kind of discussed about this for many years. But so far we found out we still like in the process of that. And because the cryptocurrency, people would like to be two sectors to focus on different areas. Some are more focused on the cryptocurrency itself. Some are more focused on the blockchain technology itself. So it's really cannot predict which will be bigger or which will leverage like each other. So it's really hard for me to know that.
But I think we can actually leverage all of them, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're into PFPs like Bored Apes or Azuki, if you're into DeFi and you like Pepe and PsyOp, or you're into video games and you just want to be able to trade your assets across different verticals, I think there's a place for everybody inside of this space, and it's up to us to find those use cases for regular consumers.
Yeah, I do agree. So if the blockchain technology can eventually be accepted by all the normal people, don't have the technology background, I think it's a really, really big move for all our industries. Yeah. Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, you want to keep going on this
Yeah,
one?
so me and Pat were talking backstage. We were like, how are we going to go about this? And I think one of the big things is the music industry and social media content creation. So I think blockchain can do a lot for these two different industries. For example, in the music industry, when an artist first signs to a record label, they don't necessarily know what they're getting into. Maybe they see a sum of money that seems interesting, so they sign on to this record label, and then later down the line, when their Spotify streams go up, they release more and more music, they figure out that they don't actually own their own music. The record labels are always watching over them, taking all of the things. And so I think blockchain can be a big part of this, to where you do own what you put out. Because a lot of artists, they won't release music, or they'll only release music based on what the record labels want. Whereas if you own everything that you put out, I think it would help with the creativity with an artist. They'll take pride in their own work. If it's all backed by the blockchain, it's secure, and they own their own music. So.
I actually want to take that in a slightly different direction too, because I've spent about a week inside of Montenegro, and I've kind of been looking at the climate here and what are the opportunities for this country itself. Something I noticed was that 60% of this country's energy is actually being currently used by coal, 40% by hydro, and it actually presents a really large opportunity for this next generation of people in Montenegro to actually make a change for renewables. And so we can think of this even like maybe an energy containment system. As Montenegro, Serbia, like the other countries in the Balkans kind of shift over to solar and look at renewables, we actually have the ability to attach a blockchain layer. What if we were to create modular grids where every single citizen inside of Montenegro had a small little piece of the grid? As these energy containment systems, currently the country uses a lot of lead acid batteries, 50% efficiency, things that need to be modernized, moving over to lithium ion. By having that lower volatility, historically, I think Montenegro, anywhere from 12% to 35% over the past couple of years, has to actually import energy because of the reliance on hydro and coal. If we were able to fractionalize this with the citizens of Montenegro, we actually now provide an opportunity to reduce that volatility, but also even give the local citizens room for more jobs, but also for them to actually be like they're a part of that grid and feel like they're part of the movement.
Okay, so let's move to our second questions. So I would like to mention AI because it's really popular recently, and everyone is talking about ChatGPT. So my question is, what's the combination for blockchain and AI technology, and what's the synergy there? And in the next 5 years, is that possible? We can see AI and the blockchain, they are working together to bring the massive adoption.
You want to take this first? You want me to? I actually saw a really cool one this week. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with a company called Golden. They're pretty well known for doing knowledge graphs. But I actually had met a founder out of Serbia who had just left Golden. And I think he was the first person who really made me interested in kind of looking at AI and ML models inside of this space. And so in looking at knowledge graphs, I think a big thing that we have to look at is kind of like Sybil resistance, like how can we make sure that these things are fair but also decentralized, right? And fully automated. And so he's like using this thing that he was telling me about, Bayesian modeling, which it's so hard to say, but it's the same concept that how our email spam filters are. And when I was talking to him, it was really just so inspiring to talk to him about how you have a human verification layer. You're putting that up against an AI or an ML model. And so you're using humans to train the AI. The AI is now checking back at those humans, and you're creating a loop and actually training that model. And it's all to make sure that consensus is good, the verification layer is good, and that there's good actors. If you have bad data, you get trash output, right? If you have good data and you have a good verification layer, you end up getting a better output in the end. And this is only possible with things like AI.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to come at it from a little bit different perspective, not from a developer standpoint or anything, but basically through AI, for example, Midjourney or DALL-E, these are these programs that can make things more beautiful. And I think making things more beautiful can attract more users. For example, the virtual wallet that I prefer to use is going to be the one that's got the UX and UI on point. Like I prefer to use something that is visually appealing, it's not complicated. So I think being able to interact, with OpenAI, DALL-E, and Midjourney, using those artistic functions to help with, for example, the way you put out your product, the way it looks, I think will, bring on more users.
So I heard a new concept for AI for using in the blockchain. They call it's a tool as an AI tool. So I think if we would like to bring more users or developers in blockchain area, using AI can easily make you to learn how to code in smart contract. Like for example, for me, if I want to use the smart contract right now, I can use ChatGPT to help me to coding. So I think this is a really big improve in our area, and a lot of developers who want to building something very interested, or they want to learn CK or CK-EVM or anything new in this area, you can easily find the answer by using the AI. I think it's quite different because back to before AI area, we will find like it's really hard to explain what's blockchain or what's going on in Ethereum or what's going on in the other like blockchains. But now people will using AI to get their answer. So it's more easier for more and more people to understand what's going on, and more easier for them to learn how to coding, how to get the knowledge of the blockchain. It's a big progress for our area. Like us, if we want like to recruiting some people who want to join the blockchain, I will let the candidates to use the AI to learn blockchain first. That's really effective. Yeah.
No, I mean, personally, a lot of questions that I have about blockchain or Web3 specifically, I'll go to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Shamelessly, I've done a lot of my learning through ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of you guys were here in 2020. I don't have a technology background, so Rabbit Hole was the kind of like platform of choice. And I spent $3,000 worth of Ethereum gas fees to learn the basics. Nowadays, you open up ChatGPT Pro and you're like, what is ZK Sync? And can you explain this to me as if I don't know anything about technology? And it gives you those answers. Yeah. There's one that I actually was thinking about as you guys were talking about this. Is actually Grimes was in Montenegro a couple weeks ago, and she's also someone who is willing to allow people to use her voice to create new music, right, at a 50% royalty. And so when you think of the use of AI, imagine in the music industry, anybody could go from text to voice, create a song out of it, right? They tokenize that license, and then they release it to the market, and automatically whenever like a payout from a Spotify or maybe a Web3 platform that's going to replace Spotify, Grimes is now getting that royalty automatically to her because it was that token that actually allowed for the person to create that music.
No, to touch on that, I'm not sure who's familiar with the artist Drake, but somebody actually made an AI song using Drake's voice, and it became one of the biggest songs on TikTok. It was on Spotify for a while, and it was one of the like top streaming songs. And then eventually, they took it down because I'm sure record labels have something to say about that. But if you were able to, place on the blockchain to where Drake is getting, the amount of money he wants from that, while the ideas are still being put out, I think could help.
Yeah. So for the AI side, I'm also looking into some very interesting project which combine the technology from blockchain and the data. So AI is, the algorithm is based on a lot of data, so they call it prompt. And Scale AI is doing a really good job in San Francisco. And I think there are something similar project or company will happen in blockchain area, because all the data we need to do, maybe we can use the algorithm by using the AI technology to proving more like easier data for normal people to use. For example, for the trading side, we do talk about on-chain analysis for the trading signal for many, many years. But in this year, we see a lot of products, they are using the AI technology to providing the on-chain data analysis. So it's really gather more attention or more transparent and like result for a lot of people. They do not have the data analysis ability. So this is a big improve related to the trading side. And the other side, like the developer community, I feel like a lot of like graduate people, they want to join this blockchain community. They are working on the data side to improving the current issue right now, like indexing. So indexing on the blockchain, the data is very slow, and the data probably needs to be tagged. So a lot of projects, they are doing the tag services on blockchain to make the data more transparent on chain for users to check. Maybe in the financial area, a lot of regulators, they are doing the KYC, AML things, but they are using this kind of technology right now to using the blockchain data. So anyone you want to share, because you're doing the dApps communities there?
Before I get on to, so I think there's a lot of competition. For example, right now we're attending a conference that's a lot about Web3. Before there was a huge NFT boom, and then now that we're seeing AI become more relevant, we almost see that there's an AI boom. But I think rather than, we don't need more NFT projects, we don't need more Web3 projects, we don't need more AI. I think there's different ways that we can learn to collaborate. Like this question says, like how is blockchain and AI going to be able to work together? So I think rather than taking one industry and having too many projects that we don't need, I think being able to combine the different sectors would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll run back with ZK. So me personally, like I'm someone who cares a lot about my privacy, right? Whenever you're downloading an app on the Apple Store or the Google Store, if it's free, I think a lot of people in this world still don't realize in 2023, if it's free, it means they're harvesting your data, they're packaging that, and they're selling it for a profit, right? So you essentially become the product that they're selling. And so the ZK, I think it's the first time where I really truly feel that like my medical information, my financial transactional data, maybe my volume that you want to analyze, or maybe my company's data that you want to analyze, all of that can be completely private. I can share it with another pool of other people. So I think one thing that I really saw was cool was actually like a genome mapping project where people were doing these saliva tests the same way that you pay money, $80 to 23andMe for them to tell you about like kind of your DNA, right? Mm-hmm. But what they're actually doing is they're making money and you're paying them for them to make money, right?
Yeah.
And so there were like these really interesting groups who are essentially—
I know a company, they are doing exactly the same, but they are using AI technology. They sell the data to this big company like the bank, the trading firm, and some credit card company or consumer company. They're gathering the data by AI algorithm and let the company to know how the user behavior is there, and they can generate more revenue by this algorithm. So I see, and it's kind of selling your data to these companies, but you can't even learn a bit. So it's quite, that's why we need Web3. Yeah.
I think that's the importance of us really kind of looking at Web 2 versus Web 3. Mm-hmm. As consumers, I work in the consumer entertainment market, mm-hmm. right? So I kind of get all this marketing. But when I talk near an Alexa with my wife, it's like, oh, when we have children, we're gonna have to get so many diapers. Like, are we gonna get the organic ones, or are we gonna get the ones that like we have to wash ourselves, or whatever, right? And the next morning, I wake up, I hop on Instagram or Twitter, and I start seeing Pampers diapers like that. It's kind of terrifying that like they can attribute something that's completely out of left field and actually target you in another different application and sell it to you. And so I think we cope a lot. We say, if that product is something that I end up buying, and albeit I've bought some of those vitamin gummies and some of these other products from it, like that it's okay because they're selling me something that I want. But the reality is that they're actually harvesting all of your information.
Yeah.
They're manipulating your own emotions and kind of like your own psychology, and they're
Yeah.
colonizing everything without giving you anything back.
Okay, so let's move to our third question. So blockchain has the potential to enhance data privacy and security. So how do you believe privacy-enhancing technologies such as zero-knowledge proofs will involve and contribute the privacy aspects of blockchain in the coming years?
Yeah, so I think one thing that you can never forget about is privacy and security. Like it's one thing to trust the blockchain, but to be able to, put your money, or eventually we talked about like your medical records, maybe even like keeping all of your personal identification, passport, your social security, your driver's license, all of these things, immunization cards, like to be able to trust the blockchain, to have all of these things is going to take some time. And so I think now that we're able to trust our money more or less on the blockchain, I think as long as we can improve the security, improve the privacy, it's going to bring more users. Like maybe my mother and my father will be able to use blockchain if they know that everything will be convenient and secure.
I completely agree with that. And I think for me, ZK is something that's interesting, but I think that at current day, it's not super useful for consumers. In a couple of years, it will be, because it's a shift in generational mindset, right? Mm-hmm. For my parents, they could care less about their personal information on the internet. My dad 10 years ago was still not willing to use a credit card on his phone, right? But for this future generation, I think knowing that it's like kind of a collectivist mentality. It's not that like we don't want to see another Cambridge Analytica. We don't want to see more of these leaks. And I think with ZK, like I'm from a gaming background, so I think it's so cool to know that I can be anonymous on the internet. I can like pool into like maybe a different marketplace, a pool of assets, maybe a collectivist fund, but to not have my personal identity linked to what I'm doing on Web3.
Okay, so I would like to share a little bit different like scenario what I've been through in Singapore right now. So I currently moved to Singapore. So once you go to be a resident there, you will get a pass called a SIM pass. It's released by the Singapore government, which is kind of the idea we are talking about, but they are probably releasing on the web too. So you are having a SIM pass which recorded all the data of yourselves, which is your passport number, your birth of date, your residence, your address, and your job. So every time you would like to apply a bank account, or you would like to log in the government website or something website, they always ask you, please log in your SIM pass, which is verified by the government. And you using the SIM pass are having the life in Singapore everywhere. So it's kind of funny because the country there is as proving that DID is very important, but you should be like verified by the government first, which this is the valuable data. So I also have questions about, okay, so the SIM pass already recorded my activities online, so if that like still has the private data you have, or you still own the data by yourself. So I do some research online, so their page saying like, oh, the data is not yours. Yes, so yes, this is what I have been through in like this country, and so Singapore is quite safe country, so they protect you, but in other like exchange, you should provide your data to the government side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this kind of relates back to the first question, where we can see blockchain in the next 5 years. And I think with privacy and security, we're talking about having to take care of all these numbers, bringing your passport places. I don't know if any of you have ever lost your passport, but going through that process of having to renew your passport, you could be in a foreign country, you could be in a country where maybe the nearest embassy to you could be a ways away, and like, it could be a nightmare. But being able to have all of those things in one area and knowing that it's private and secure would be a great, a solution to a simple problem as losing your passport.
And I think in the midterm, we actually have a couple different ideas in the space that are trying to kind of improve on this, right? We saw that Vitalik's very first NFT that he had minted was something called RNS, which was a Republic of Palau ID, kind of trying to test the waters of whether like a US minor territory would be able to accomplish something like this. We also have companies like Molecule and Molecule Controller. And so Molecule Controller is a single line of code, and they essentially are a no-code dashboard that allows you to turn on and off compliance. They tokenize the answers of, like, let's say an AML policy from, or like a KYC check from a company like Plaid. Maybe a real ID verification if you're looking to claim like a bottle of vodka from the internet. But all they do is actually end up tokenizing it as a yes or a no. And what we need now is actually adoption from both ends. I think the Web3 side understands it, but the Web2 side doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And so until we can actually adopt, or until we get more organizations, especially government organizations, involved in this on the Web2 end, we're not going to be able to change it, and that's why it takes a little bit of time for us actually to move on these types of security and privacies.
Yeah, I do agree. So I think we still have some time for everyone's here. So is that anyone want to raise your hand to ask some questions?
What are your ideas for blockchain in the next 5 years? Where do you see blockchain in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we covered everything, so.
Awesome, thank you so much
Okay, thank
to
you.
our panel. Please give them a round of applause.